Hey, now. Okay. So you have to keep in mind that everybody's going to be able to hear this. So the more you misbehave, the more people are going to, and they might recognize your voice as well. So who knows? Okay. So we talked about speed is equal to distance. I'll wait, boys. Distance divided by time. Anybody tell me what is the distance? What is the distance that we know according to our to this bike project? What's the distance that we know that we start off with, Kate? Sure. So we know that this part right here is going to be 100 feet. Our time was different for each one of our classes. But just to keep our numbers simple, we're going to say that our time is going to be 9 seconds. Okay? So now one thing that we need to do is we need to convert. And I would recommend that everybody uses miles rather than using feet. Otherwise, your numbers are going to get really, really big. Okay? So one thing that I need to do is I need to make this conversion to miles. Okay? And I know that 5,280 feet is equivalent to 1 mile. So one way I can make this conversion, and this is part of, it's one of the questions on page 2, it's number 3. How do we convert these rates? How do we do these conversions? Well, we need to understand that 5,280 feet is 1 mile. So instead of making this 100 feet, my next equivalent ratio should be 5,280 feet, right here. And now we can use whatever tool that we've done, whether you use crisscross and multiply here and divide by 100, or if you find the magic number here and the magic number here, or if you take 100 and divide it by 9, you'll get a number. Okay, and then you go over here and you say 5,280 divided by what number should be equal to this number? Well, we could take 5,280 and divide it by that number to find that number. So there's many different methods that we've talked about this year that we can use to get there. So what I'd like you to do right now is pick your method, but I need to know if we, for 100 feet, if we average 9 seconds for 100 feet, what would that average be now that we're up to 5,280 feet? How many seconds would that be? It's going to be a rather large number. But then once we get to miles up here, because this is equivalent to 1 mile. So once we get done, we know that this is now going to be 1 mile and that this is going to be our number for the number of seconds because 5,280 feet is 1 mile. Okay, it's equivalent. So that means that whatever this number is below 5,280 is going to be the same for 1 mile. And we've accomplished one of the major hurdles for this project. So I'm going to give you a few moments. Everyone's going to do it on a sheet of paper, and you can use a calculator if needed. But I want you to find what is that number and what method did you use, okay? We're going back live right now. So someone tell me, anybody do, whatever you do at the bottom, you have to do to the top, okay? What is the magic number? 52, did more than one kid get 52.8? Hello? Yeah. Awesome. So I'm going to go with it without doing the calculations. So now, can you explain to me, how did you get 52.8? Yeah, and I bet we could do that because when we divide by 100, we essentially lose 2 decimal places. So we go like this, start right here and go 1, 2. Yes, 52. I've just confirmed that it is correct. I have. Okay? So he took 5,280 and divided it by 100 and found that magic number. And you know what? It's a nice kind number. It doesn't have a repeating decimal. This method doesn't always work the greatest when we have to deal with repeating decimals. Now, for this situation, it actually would because you could keep that 52.8 with the repeating if it were. And we know that we have to take 9 and multiply by that to get to this. Okay? So essentially, for 1 mile, we're going to be able to figure out how many seconds is it. Okay? 9 seconds for 100 feet is equivalent to 5,280 feet for how many seconds? If we take 9 and multiply it by 52.8, can someone tell me What is 9 times 52.8? Yeah. 475 point what? 0.2, and that's still seconds, right? We haven't changed that second unit. We're going to have to do that in a second. But essentially, we now know that 1 mile is 475.2 seconds. Okay? Now, what eventually we want to do is we want to convert, we want to start focusing on the green. Because, you know, if you're going 72 miles, for instance, we'd have to multiply that number, that seconds, by 72. And man, I don't know if we really want to go there. So our next conversion that we really have to do, is we have to convert these seconds right here to minutes, and then those minutes to hours. Okay? And then once we do that, then we can go back and try and find a unit rate. Does that make sense to everybody? And you're going to find out that, you know, 475.2 will eventually get it to minutes, and we'll eventually get it to an hour. And then we have to convert that portion of an hour to 1 full hour and figure out how many miles can we travel in 1 hour. Kids, when you get to your unit rate and you get to the unit rate question, that's really your key goal for this piece, is how many miles do you travel in 1 hour? Because once you do that, we can figure out, all right, if let's say we go 7 miles in 1 hour, which is probably going to be about your average. It's going to be pretty close based off the numbers that I saw. 7 miles for 1 hour. If we have to travel, let's say 70 hours or 70 miles, how many hours is that going to take? 7 miles for 1 hour. We're going to travel a grand total. 70 is the maximum you can do on your bike trip. It's going to take 10 hours. So that's an easy convert if we get that nice 7. I don't know if we're going to get that nice 7. We'll find out in a little bit. Okay? So here's the next piece that we need to know is we have 475 and 2/10 of a second. And what we need to do is we need to convert that to minutes. And what we need to do is know the minute exchange that we have. We have to know the minute exchange that we have. Okay? And the minute exchange that we have is we need to figure out how many seconds are in a minute. Okay? So I know that there's exactly 60 seconds is equal to 1 minute. Okay? Now, kids, I do want to let you know that your average speed's probably not 9 seconds. It's pretty close to this. Okay? And so when you convert this for 1 mile, it's not exactly that number, but it's pretty close. I don't want to see these numbers right here, this 475.2 or 400. I don't want to see those numbers on your project because they're not yours. I'm just using this as an example so that you can actually do yours. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so the green numbers up here are not actually your numbers. This is where it starts to change. What I did in red up here and in black up here, that's what you want to do. So I better change this right here to 9 seconds. Okay, that's a green number. Green is not your numbers, but the red and black, those will be what you need to do. Okay, so we're going to actually create a ratio here of 60 seconds, and notice that I have to have seconds on the top, seconds on the top. Okay, and then I'm going to have 1 minute on the bottom. We're going to say, essentially we're asking right here is how many minutes is 475.2 seconds. Okay, and so what we need to do is we can either use our cross multiplication method here, or again, we can find whatever you do to the top, you have to do to the bottom. I do need to go back and change something because I know for a fact when I say every number that's green, this number right here in green is going to be a number you can use to make this conversion right here. This is going to be 52.8 for our magic number. That will be true because we know that 100 times 52.8 gives us 5,280. Everyone is going to use those two numbers if you use that method, unless you use crisscross. You okay? Okay. So now these two numbers right here are going to be in green because they're not going to be the same numbers that we use. Can anybody tell me, what do we do with these two numbers to find our magic number? What do we do with these two numbers to find our magic number? Say again? Divide. What numbers are we going to divide? Great, but if we do 60 divided by 475, we might be in a wee bit of trouble. What numbers do we have to divide? Yep. Yeah, if you take the biggest number and divide it by the smaller, number, that's going to give us that. So let's punch in 475.2 divided by 60, and that's going to give us this magic number right here. Okay? Now, what'd we get? Did everybody get that? 7.92. Okay? So this is 7.92. So this number right here has to be 7.92 minutes. So now, what we know right now is that for 1 mile, it takes 7.92 minutes. Okay? So now what we need to do is we need to convert that 7.92 into hours. Okay? And this is why it gets a little bit confusing, because we're going to get a really, really small number, but that's going to tell you how far, what fraction of an hour is 7.92. That's essentially what we're asking right now. And that will tell you how many, in 1 mile, how many hours it will take. And then we have to go back and find that actual unit rate to figure out how far can we go in 1 hour. So you see how we have to do multiple steps here to get to our problem. We're now at minutes, the 7.92, and we have this right here, 1 mile. It will take us 7.92 minutes, and that does not mean 7 minutes and 92 seconds. That's 7 minutes and 92% of a minute. So in other words, we'd have to find 92% of 60 seconds to figure out how, if you wanted to figure out how many seconds. I don't think we need to go there on this project, okay? We just stick with the decimals. But we just need to know that that does not mean 92 seconds. That means 92% of a minute, or 92 hundredths of a minute, which is 92%. Everybody with me there? Okay, so this stuff in green is what you're going to have to eventually do. Then we're going to have to go on to the very next step. Let's get this out of the way a little bit. Okay, we know that there's 60 minutes in 1 hour. And really, I shouldn't have that in green. This stuff right here should really be in black or red, because that is what you're going to be using. So now I take my number of minutes, 7.92 minutes, and I say, how many hours is that? So I'm going to take that 7.92, and I'm Sorry, I'm running out of room, so I'm going to have to get rid of that piece. Maybe what I'll do is I'll just put it right here and say 7.92. That's an ugly one, but at least we know those two are the same. And then I'm going to put this conversion that we know. And notice I have minutes over hours, so I'm going to do minutes over hours, and I know that 1 hour is exactly 60 minutes. So now we have to do that whole process all over again. Okay? 7.92 times what number is 60? Okay? So in other words, you have to do 60 divided by 7.92. What'd you get? No. We got to take big divided by small. What's that? Okay. We're going to use 7.57. Or we could define. No, we should actually round it up. 7.58. Okay? That's approximately. It's not exact, but I'm going to say that this number right here is 7.58. Whoops, I grabbed the wrong marker. Okay? So now what that means is 60 divided by 7.58 is about 77.92. 7.92 times 7.58 is 60. Okay? So going from here to here is multiplication. Going from here to here is division. And we have to keep that the same. So essentially, I have to take 1 and divide it by 7.58. And that will give me my portion of an hour that it takes for 1 mile. Okay? And then we're going to do it the next step and find that actual unit rate. Okay? So what is 1 divided by 7.58? 0.139 or 131? Okay, so we're going to use 0.13. Okay? So 1 mile is about 13% of an hour. Okay? Now I'm going to go on to my next page, and I'm going to keep in mind that 1 mile, and again, this isn't going to be your number, is equal to 0.13 hours. Okay? And when I go on to my next page, I have 1 mile is equivalent to, what did I say, 0.13 hours. So now my goal is to get this. Here's where unit rate comes in, kids. How much for 1? How many miles will we get for 1? So I want to figure out my miles for 1 hour, or miles per hour. This is going to get us there. We know that we want this to be 1. So what is our miles going to be? Have to go through the same process if we're using whatever we do at the top. 1 divided by 0.13. 7.69. So now watch this. This number times this is 1. So 0.13 times 7.69 is approximately 1. So if we take 1 and multiply it by 7.69, because we always do the smaller to bigger's multiplication. And if we're multiplying this way, if we go this way and this is multiplication to this, then that means up here we have to do the same thing. This goes that way. Okay, so 1 times 7.69, kids, we now found our unit rate of 7.69 miles for every hour. And I told you it's going to be around 7 miles per hour. Now, kids, for those of you that want to know how much time it's going to take, it's pretty simple. If you're doing 70 miles in one day, you put 70 miles right up here, and that'll tell you how many hours. And you can do the exact same process. Okay? So now we're going to be able to go through and see how long it takes each and every day to figure that out. But we have to go through all of those steps and do all of those things. And here's our key thing. This right here is our unit rate. It's our unit rate of miles per hour. And that's going to be 7.69 miles for every 1 hour. And I guarantee this number right here isn't going to be exact, but everybody that I saw, when I looked at almost every group's data, you're going to be somewhere between 6.5 and 8 miles per hour. Everybody's going to be, it's not going to be the same as 7 point. If I hear 7.69 miles per hour, I know you copied right from this video. Okay? And everybody within your class should have this exact same number because we all use the same data. You had 10 bikers or 10 different bike test times from different bikers. Some of the classes were the exact same. You found that average speed of 100 feet for so many seconds, and eventually you'll get to how many miles per hour we're traveling. But we did a lot of work to get there. And hopefully you're going to be able to come up with this number on your own. And once you get this number, from that point on, it should be smooth sailing for you. You can calculate the number of hours it's going to take for every day, and more importantly, you're going to be able to calculate, can you actually do this bike trip? Can you actually do 70 miles in one day? And for those of you that are in Miss Sawyer's class, can you do 70 miles with one stop? And that one stop in between those 70 miles that you're traveling, you have to spend at least 20 minutes at. If you got 2 stops, then it's going to be stopping at a point 20 minutes, stopping at the next point 20 minutes, and traveling to the very end. With all the factors that we have inside our bike packet, do you have enough time to actually do this in one day? So is it doable? So your answer to that question is either going to be yes or no, and then my follow-up question is going to be why? Great, how much time is left over? Okay? So there's a little bit of help that you get for your bike project.